Department of Statistics to launch household budget survey. St. Martin Medical Center needs to comply in order to receive 5 million guilders, says MP DeWeaver. But first, Member of Parliament Sarah Westcott Williams seeking clarity on screening process. And these are the headlines for Wednesday, January 14, 2015. I'm Sharon Freiberg for AVS News, and now for the details. In an invited comment with AVS News on Wednesday, leader of the Democratic Party and Member of Parliament Sarah Westcott Williams stated that the government of St. Martin quietly closed off the chapter of the screening of the ministers. However, with the statement attributed to Minister Plastrick regarding the screening, the government has, in her opinion, no choice but to inform and explain Parliament and the general public how this process was conducted and by whom.
Took note of a statement not too long ago by Minister Plasterk, that's the Dutch Minister for Kingdom Relations and Interior Affairs, and amongst other things, the Minister Plasterk that is, was quoted as saying that our candidate ministers who were installed on St. Martin on December the 19th were, and now I quote from what Minister Plasterk seemingly has said, he said, and I quote, "These candidates were subjected with the assistance of employees of the Dutch Secret Service to an extra severe screening." End of quote. Following a lot of commotion after the Kingdom government issued the instruction to the governor to follow another screening process than we had established here on St. Martin, the Parliament of St. Martin on October the 22nd, by a unanimous motion, rejected the measure of instruction to the governor regarding this same screening. And so I, via the chairperson of Parliament, Dr. Lloyd Richardson, that is the way we have to submit questions to the government, sent a letter to the Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, the Honorable Marcel F. Gomes, with a very specific questions. 1. What exactly was the role of the Dutch Secret Service in the screening of the ministers of St. Martin? 2. Was that involvement only for this batch of ministers, or will the Dutch Secret Service henceforth be involved in the screening of St. Martin ministers? Question 3 to the Prime Minister. How is the role of the Dutch Secret Service formalized nationally, meaning here on St. Martin? And the 4th question, finally, are the new screening regulations and procedures that apparently include a role for the Dutch Secret Service laid down in a national decree or other national regulation? And if so, has such been publicized, or has the national decree of May 22nd, 2013, number 0442, been amended? In my release to the media, I also indicated, to make it very clear, that these questions regard 1, the process that has been followed, but especially the part, and again I say, where Minister Plasterk is quoted as saying that our candidate ministers were subjected with the assistance of employees of the Dutch Secret Service to an extra severe screening. This needs to be clarified. I hope that the Prime Minister can give answers to these questions to Parliament before the visit of Minister Plasterk to St. Martin, so that it can be clear, and especially to the Parliament that was so vehemently opposed to that particular instruction, that we can get the necessary information and clarity on this matter.
Independent Member of Parliament Cornelius de Weaver has taken note of St. Martin Medical Center's article regarding the 5 million guilders from government for urgent repairs. It is obvious that the St. Martin Medical Center has another objective rather than reply to the December 12, 2014 letter, which clearly stated the terms and conditions of the St. Martin Medical Center in receiving the approved funds. In addition, the Memorandum of Understanding needs to be signed between SMMC, the APS, SZV, and government. The contents remain confidential as agreed upon by all parties. All parties have been waiting for the MMC to agree to and sign the MOU in order for us all to move forward. I encourage the board and management of St. Martin Medical Center to be honest, transparent when communicating to the public and focus their energy on finalizing this matter in the interest of the medical center and the clients they are supposed to serve. And up next, Minister of Public Health to implement expanded program on immunization. And we'll have that story as soon as we return. To announce the official launch of the Department of Statistics Household Budget Survey for 2015. The Household Budget Survey is used to collect income and expenditure statistics from households. In his opening remarks, Minister Connor gave a brief synopsis regarding the survey.
Ms. Saskia Thomas Solomon, who is the statistical analyst from the Department of Statistics, and Ms. McKinney Hickerson, who is the department head of statistics, is here to share with you a project that will start in a few weeks on the island. And as minister, I would like to encourage the general public to support and to understand the importance of this project. The details of the project will be outlined by the two individuals that are here. I would like to also acknowledge my Chief of Staff, Mr. James, who is joining us this morning. And yeah, as I was saying, that the project is something that I feel is important for not only the statistical department of this country in terms of gathering information that is important and vital to some of the decisions that we would be making as a country, but it's important because of the fact that it gives us tools to be able to make some of these decisions based on accurate information. So
shortly thereafter, Saskia Thomas Solomon, who is the project leader, elaborated on what the survey will entail.
Starting off with a pilot survey, as she explained, where we're going to test the skills of the interviewer as well as how the households respond to the type of questions that we're going to have in this survey. Specifically, this survey is to reweigh the basket of goods. So, for instance, as of now, for the Consumer Price Index, food contributes 10%, but as that was done in 2005, things might have changed, could have, or maybe not, but changed nonetheless today. So we have to reweigh that basket as it affects the consumer, the way the cost of living is calculated. So for instance, that 10% might change to 30% today. Now, inflation in that category, as a result, would affect the entire inflation rate. So definitely the importance of such a exercise in order to have an accurate calculation of cost of living is vital. The participation of the household also, as a result, is vital because the information comes from the households in order for us to know how to calculate the cost of living. Households will be asked questions on all their expenses in all categories, from food to housing to what they spend on buying a car, what they spend on maintaining that car, to as simple as purchasing a pasticci on the corner. The household that are partaking is a sample of St. Martin's population. So in the pilot, we're now just doing a 2-week period, of which a small sample would be gathered, but nevertheless randomly over the entire island to test the workload that the interviewer can manage at a time, the number of households they can manage. And then in a major survey, which starts in April, there is 1,005 households that is selected. From the sample, all households will be informed prior to the interviewer coming to their house on that they are selected in the sample and asking their participation. It is voluntary. However, we urge the population to partake. It is a very detailed survey, so the questions are quite detailed in terms of asking about your salary, asking about your last GB bill, to see that GB bill so that we can actually make note of the correct, the kilowatt usage and the cubic meter usage of water and electricity and how much that bill is. Please bear in mind, everything is anonymous. The data is not linked to your name. The data is kept primarily and only for the purpose of calculating an average that represents our country.
The Ministry of Public Health, Social Development and Labor Collective Prevention Services, Dr. Virginia Assen, says CPS is busy with the implementation of the recommendations that came out of the 30th meeting of the Caribbean Immunization Managers, hosted by St. Martin last November, which dealt with the finalization of the expanded program of immunization plan of action for 2015. One of the general recommendations is that countries should continue working towards achieving national coverage of 95% or more for each administered vaccine at each region, district, or zone level. St. Martin's immunization coverage between 0 to 17 years old is 92%. And let's take a look now at our weather forecast. The prevailing Atlantic high pressure ridge will gradually weaken over the next few days. However, moisture being transported across the region will continue to produce occasional cloudy periods with a few passing showers. Seas are still above normal. However, a gradual improvement is expected from Thursday as wind speed begin to decrease. A small craft advisory remains in effect for St. Martin, and small craft operators and sea bathers should continue to exercise extreme caution. And this is our 3-day forecast in the traffic situation outside the Yogesh building. Next, Democratic Party faction to continue with draft timeshare initiative laws. We'll have that story when we come back. Leader of the DP faction in Parliament, MP Sarah Westcott Williams, also stated during the invited comment with AVS News on Wednesday that she has informed the chairman of Parliament of her faction's intention to pick up the draft timeshare initiative laws and continue with the process. As is the case with the initiative laws, the initiators are responsible for the process.
You know that there has been so much talk about matters pertaining to the timeshare, and very specifically what has taken place at the property known as the Caravanserai Hotel. And so today I informed the Chairman of Parliament, Dr. Lloyd Richardson, of the DP's intention to pick up the draft timeshare initiative laws and continue with the process for these laws. As is the case with initiative laws, the initiators are responsible for the process of the laws. And it is also customary that a faction can continue the process of these laws started by one or more of its members no longer in Parliament. This is the case with these 2 drafts regarding timeshare. These initiative drafts were started by the former Member of Parliament for the Democratic Party, Mr. Petrus Leroy de Weaver. I also, in doing this, informed Minister Claret Connor of my intentions, and I suggested in my letter to the minister that we meet to plan the way forward with these drafts. I did so to avoid any overlapping and or doubling of efforts, with government on one hand doing one thing and Parliament on the other hand doing something else. In July of last year, the Council of Advice advised on these drafts. Just like all draft laws are to be subjected to the advice of the Council of Advice, so are initiative draft laws by one or more members of Parliament. As far as I have been able to ascertain, this is where the two timeshare drafts are at. One of these drafts regard a timeshare authority and the other on regulating the industry, the so-called timeshare ordinance. I suggested in providing the minister with information from this side, from Parliament side, the advice by the Council of Advice, etc., I suggested that we meet as a faction with his ministry in order to plan the way forward so that government and Parliament hopefully can get a grip on this situation as soon as possible and proceed with the laws, and if necessary, amend them, do whatever is necessary, but proceed with haste to come to some type of regulations as far as the timeshare industry on St. Martin is concerned.
Still to come, Atlantis Casino armed robbery suspect arrested. We'll be back after these messages. Police spokesperson Inspector Ricardo Henson reported that on Tuesday, January 12th, at approximately 11 a.m., a police patrol from the Simpson Bay area spotted a motorcycle riding in the Coal Bay area without a license plate and recognized the rider as one of the suspects of an armed robbery at the Atlantis Casino, which took place on November 16, 2014. For whom an arrest warrant was issued, and when the suspect with initials KD noticed the police were following him, he took off at a high speed through the streets of Coal Bay and K Bay. The Central Police Dispatch sent several other patrols to assist. The suspect was arrested on the spot and taken to the Phillipsburg Police Station, where he remains for further investigation. And later that day at 1:15 p.m., several police patrols were sent by the Central Police Dispatch to the L.B. Scott Road between the Milton Peters College and the St. Martin Academy PSVE to investigate a stabbing on the scene. The investigating officers encountered the 17-year-old victim, who had 2 superficial stab wounds to his upper chest, from which he was bleeding. The suspect had already fled the scene in the direction of Milton Peters College. The victim was attended to by paramedics and taken to the St. Martin Medical Center for further treatment. The 17-year-old suspect with the initials DW was located shortly after in the vicinity of the Milton Peters College, and during a search, the knife that was used in the stabbing was found, along with 24 small plastic bags, each containing a small amount of marijuana, prepared for distribution. The suspect was arrested on the spot. The knife and drugs were confiscated for further investigation. And this has been the newscast for Wednesday, January 14th, 2015. I'm Sharon Freiberg. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to meet you back here again tomorrow.